Hello, welcome back to Black Dice Gaming. I'm James, and today we're painting up the demonic tree. There she is. Alright, so basically it's a really quick paint scheme that we're going to be doing. It doesn't use too many paints at all. I can't remember offhand. You'll have to count them yourself as I go. But we've done that sort of glowing demon-looking face because it doesn't show you very well in the picture, so I thought I'll try and make it stand out a little bit more. It's not to the box art, which I usually do. It's just my own variation on what I think it would look like. I've done the water effect on the base as well, which was a nice, simple, straightforward process. Just one paint to do that with the slap chop method. So without further ado, let's go on with some painting. Okay, so let's start putting some paint on the model. Just to explain, we did a undercoat in black, and then we did a dry brush in Storm Vermin Fair. On top of that, I then used Tusk Gore Fair, just to give it a little bit of a brown highlight, and then on top of that we used some Corax White. Okay, so without further ado, we'll get on with our first colour. And the first colour we're going to use is Wildwood, and we're pretty much going to paint this all over the model. I'm not going to be following the box art because I'm not overly keen on how the box art looks. I'm going to try and make it a little bit more grimdark, a little bit more natural looking. So with the Wildwood being a dark wooden colour, we're just going to cover the whole model with that, and then bring out the other colours with dry brushing and layering on top. Okay, so don't forget there is places on the base which are going to require Wildwood as well. There's also water areas on the base that are going to require a completely different method. And then there's also stones and things on the base which again will be a completely different colour. But all the wooden branch areas and everything like that, we're going to give this coat of Wildwood. So as you can see, it's slow progress. There's a lot to do. So I will crack on, get this out the way, and we'll be back with the next step. So whilst we're waiting for that to dry, we're just going to paint in the stone, and for that I'm going to be using Basilicanum Grey, and we're just going to pick out the sort of rocky areas around the base, like so. So there is a rock that he stood on, so we'll need to get in at that as well. Make sure we get all the sides of it painted in. There's quite a few of them just dotted around. Just take your time. Let the Basilicanum Grey and the slap chop undercut do its work. So it's self-shading. Slowly just picking out each and every one of them. Okay, so like I said, there's quite a few to do, so I'll crack on, and then we'll be back with the next step. Okay, so with the stonework done, we're going to paint the water, and for that I'm going to use Ethermatic Blue, which is a very light pale colour, and this is just going to cover the water. We're going to let that slap chop undercoat do the work of changing the shades of the water. I'm sure you can see that, whether or not it's picking up on the screen there. See, it's quite a pale looking blue. I'm just going to go around and fill in all the water parts on the base. You see how the white that we've used on the undercoat is kind of leaving ripples in the water, which is exactly what we'd want it to do. Okay, so I'm going to crack on, do the rest of the water. There's quite a little bit of it on the base, and we'll be back with the next step. Okay, so moving on with some dry brushing, we're going to be using Morn Fang Brown, and we're just going to be dry brushing the wooden parts, just to pick out all the edges and the creases in the wood. I'm just going to go around picking out some of those. Usually the parts that are going to be most exposed to the daylight or the sunlight, should we say. I'm just going to add it a little bit more depth, a little bit more colour, and make that wood stand out just that bit more. So we're going to be focusing mainly on the head, the tops of the arms, his back, and the tops of the legs, and so on and so forth. Just trying to get that colour to pop on the raised areas before we move on to the next colours. Okay, so I'm going to carry on, get the rest of that done, and then I'll be back with the next stage. So the next stage, we're going to mix up a bit of a colour, and we're going to use Morn Fang Brown again, and we're going to mix it up 1-to-1 with Carrick Stone, and it's going to create a little lighter brown. And we're just going to use that on the really raised areas. Just a very light dry brush on the extreme areas, just to create a little bit more definition, a little bit more highlight, only in the highest spots. So again, we're going in with a dry brush. Just really focusing where we're placing this colour. Like I said, it's roughly 1-to-1 mix. You could maybe do an even lighter dry brush with just Carrick Stone if you wanted to. It might be a little bit too stark, which is why I decided just to dilute it down with the brown that we've already used. Always remember to go against the grain when dry brushing, because we just want it to pick up on the edges and nowhere else. Okay, so I'm going to carry on, get the rest of that done, and we'll be back with the next colour. Okay, so with that dry brush done, we're going to do a little bit of painting. At this stage, what we're going to do is we're going to be using Orc Flesh, that's the contrast paint, and we're just going to be using small amounts, and we're just going to be painting in some of the sort of vines and tendrils. There's a fair amount of this on the model, And the reason we're using the contrast is because if it does overflow, that's not a problem. It's going to shade and do everything for us. But we're just going to use this just to break up all the brown. And all the wooden areas, just to give it a tint of another colour, just like so. Okay, so you can see what we've done there. We're just picking out the vines and the tendrils there. Now you can do as much or as little of this as you like, really. There are certain areas here which are supposed to be like a moss, so I'll be picking that out just there. Just like so. And then we could tickle his beard with it as well, because although these are tendrils, this is supposed to be his beard, or to represent what his beard would be. So that's a good area to pick out just there. The obvious bark areas I think we should leave, but it's entirely up to you. The box art has a big mixture of colours. Can do some bits on his legs here. Like I say, you can do as much or as little of this as you want. And it's just to separate it, really. It's just to give it a little bit of definition. A little bit of difference within the model. You can see on the back here, I've tried Militarum Grey just there. Militarum Green. That wasn't sort of effective enough. And then I tried a Themio Camo Wash, whatever it's called. Athonian Camo Shade. I tried that, and that didn't really pick up any colours there as well. So this is why I've settled with the Orc Green, the Orc Flesh. Okay, so like I said, do as much or as little of it as you want. These areas are going to all be in the Orc Flesh as well. And these tendrils down here. Sort of mossy, viney areas, that's where we're trying to limit this to. Okay. I'm going to crack on with the rest of it, and I'll be back with the next edge. So with the dark green dry, we're just going to give it a very light dry brush, just to make it stand out just that little bit more. For this, I'm using Orc Flesh base paint, and it's just to sort of create that edge highlight along the green areas, just to make it stand out that little bit more, but without going too over the top with it. So we are targeting just the areas that we've painted in the green, although it's not the end of the world if it does go on the brown. Obviously we don't particularly want it there, but it's just about getting that simple finish on those areas. What we've just done green. You see how how it's picking up. Just giving it a little bit more definition where we've been. Like I say, it's quite targeted. It's a quite small dry brush. You don't want to be going over the top. Just want to give it that one pass. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing here, just picking out that edge highlight with the dry brush method. Okay, I'll crack on with the rest of it. We'll be back in a few. Okay, so pretty much moving on to the final touches now. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take some Corex white and I'm just going to pick out its facial features. And the reason I'm going to do that is because we're going to go in with a really striking green and then fill it all in. And this white is going to make it all stand out and hopefully be very fluorescent. And it's just to sort of make his face a lot more clearer. So this is completely optional. Don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I've never done anything like this, so I thought I'd give it a try. But obviously what we'd have to do is we're going to have to wait for the paint to completely dry before we move on to the next step. So I'm just picking out its eyes now. They're just hollow sockets. And it's okay if you get it just on the outside of it, because that's going to create some of the glowing effect that we're going to be trying to aiming for as well. Okay, so just make sure you cover those areas just like so. If you feel you need to do 2 coats, then by all means. But the next, we're going to be using Striking Scorpion Green. But you could use whatever. You could use a yellow if you wanted to, or a bright red. Okay, so I'm going to wait until that's fully dried, and then we'll be back with the last step. Okay, so the white now dry. We're going to go in with a Striking Scorpion Green, and we're just going to cover over the white areas. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to try and feather it out, just to sort of create that glowing look. A little bit like so. Okay. Carrying around the rest of it. It's worth putting on reasonably thickly, because we want really good coverage. You see how it's starting to look like it's glowing? And then the same with the eyes. Sorry if you can hear me breathing, I'm struggling with a cold. Just picking the excess up with a clean brush. And there we go. A glowing demon face. Pretty striking. Okay, so that'll be about it for this tutorial. If you have enjoyed or you've learned something, then please like and subscribe. There's more to come. Got a couple more dragons yet to do, to unbox and then paint up for you all. But there she is. Well, there he is. Sorry, the demon or demonic tree from Dungeons and Lasers. Done quickly. Okay, hopefully I shall catch you in the next one.